The dim glow of neon lights flickered through the rain-soaked streets, casting an eerie pallor over the crumbling asphalt. I pulled into the parking lot of the Oakwood Motel, a relic of a bygone era nestled between two towering gas stations. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something harder to define. It was just past dusk, and as I stepped out of my car, the sound of distant thunder rumbled like a warning. I wrapped my arms round myself, shivering, both from the chill and a creeping sense of unease. Having always been a solitary traveler, I found solace in motel. They were like temporary sanctuaries, each room a blank canvas for stories untold. But the Oakwood had a reputation. Whispers of stranger occurrences and peculiar guests echoed in the air. Small towns round it. Still, I brushed off the apprehension. I was here for a weekend retreat. Much needed break from the noise of everyday life. As I checked in, the receptionist, an older woman with hollow cheeks and tired eyes, peered at me over her glasses. She spoke in hushed tones, almost conspiratorially. "Room 12 is cozy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Just don't go wandering too far at night. You never know who might be lurking." I chuckled nervously, trying to dismiss her warning, but a chill crept down my spine as she handed me the key. Room 12 was small, with faded wallpaper and a musty odor that clung to the air. I tossed my bag onto the bed, its springs creaking under the weight. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering intermittently. I settled onto the worn-out chair by the window, peering out into the darkness. That's when I first saw it, a silhouette moving between the shadows of the nearby trees. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving only the rustling of leaves in its wake. As the night deepened, I recalled the stories I had heard about the Oakwood. The first tale floated into my mind, a chilling account of a couple who had checked in one fateful Halloween night. They had been excited, looking for a romantic getaway, but something sinister lurked within those walls. Guests reported hearing muffled screams, only to find the room empty the next morning. Save for a blood-stained bedspread, the couple had vanished, leaving behind nothing but questions and a lingering dread that settled over the motel like a thick fog. As I brushed off the goosebumps on my arms, I turned on the television, hoping to drown out the encroaching darkness. But the static-filled screen offered little comfort. Suddenly, the second story emerged from the recesses of my mind, the one about a lone traveler who had checked in with a strange suitcase. The next morning, the suitcase was found in the parking lot, wide open, revealing only a series of disturbing photographs depicting the rooms of the motel, each one with a different guest. Their faces twisted in terror. The traveler had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions that still haunted the motel staff. Heart racing, I switched off the television, the silence pressing in round me. I glanced at the clock. It was past midnight. I needed to sleep, to escape the growing sense of dread that enveloped me. But sleep was elusive, and I lay wide-eyed, listening to the distant sounds of the night. That's when I heard it, a soft scratching at my door, persistent and ominous. The third story rushed back, a chilling tale of a woman who had heard the same sound, only to find a child standing in the hallway, pale and wide-eyed. She had tried to help him, but he vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving her alone in the dark. The next morning, she discovered that the motel had been built on the site of an old orphanage, where a tragedy had taken place long ago. With my heart pounding, I crept to the door, my hand trembling as I turned the knob. Hallway was empty, shrouded in shadows, but I could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes watching me. I stepped back, the door clicking shut behind me, sealing in the growing fear. As I lay back down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the corners of the room. The Oakwood Motel was more than just a place to rest. It was a vessel for the past, a keeper of secrets yet to be uncovered. I closed my eyes, praying that I would awaken to the morning light. But deep down, I knew that the night was far from over. As the hours dragged on, my mind replayed the stories I'd heard from the locals about the Oakwood Motel, the whispers of ghostly apparitions, strange noises in the night, and the disappearance of guests were woven into the fabric of this place. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden in the walls, secrets that had drawn me in like a moth to a flame. With a deep breath, I decided to distract myself, reaching for my phone to scroll through social media. But the signal was weak, and the screen flickered, casting an eerie glow in the dimly lit room. I tossed the device aside, my unease unease growing. That's when I heard it again, the scratching. This time, it felt different, more deliberate, as if something was trying to gain my attention. I glanced at the clock once more, to 15 a.m. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing down, making my skin crawl. It reminded me of another tale. A couple who had stayed in room 12 and had reported hearing a child's laughter echoing through the halls. They thought it was just a figment of their imagination until they found a dusty old toy in the closet the next morning, a toy that had once belonged to a child who had lived at the orphanage. The couple left immediately, their faces pale and shaken, claiming they could never return to the Oakwood again. My pulse quickened as I recalled the image of that toy, the faded paint chipping away, the ghostly laughter lingering like a wisp of smoke. The scratching resumed, now accompanied by a soft giggle echoing from somewhere in the hallway. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Was it just my imagination, or was there truly something out there? Summoning every ounce of courage, I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the cool floor sending a shiver up my spine. I tiptoed to the door, my heart pounding in rhythm with the scratching. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed my ear against the door, hoping to catch a sound, anything that would reveal what lurked beyond. Nothing, just the silence, thick and oppressive. I closed my eyes, drawing on the remnants of my bravery, and turned the knob once more. Slowly opening the door, the hallway lay before me, draped in shadows, the flickering fluorescent lights casting dancing shapes across the wall. My breath caught in my throat as I peered into the darkness, half expecting to see a figure standing there, waiting. Suddenly, a soft whisper broke the stillness, a voice barely above. A murmur, "Help me." It sent chills racing down my spine, the primal instinct to flee surging within me. But I couldn't turn back. I had to know. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling as it echoed down the corridor. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. I took a step forward and then another, each footfall feeling like a countdown to an unknown fate. The scratching had ceased, replaced by the unsettling absence of sound. I glanced toward room 13, where the stories claimed a man had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a blood-stained bed and a sense of dread. The door was slightly ajar, the flickering light spilling out like a warning. I steeled myself, pushing the door open wider, the hinges groaning in protest. The room was empty, but the air was thick with a sense of foreboding, as if the walls were holding their breath. My eyes were drawn to the bed, where a single, tattered teddy bear lay, its button eyes gleaming in the dim light. I felt an overwhelming urge to reach for it, to understand its story, but something deep within me screamed to turn back. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement, a fleeting shadow darting across the room. I whirled around, my heart raced, but there was nothing there, just the silence of the motel, heavy and suffocating. With a final glance at the bear, I stepped back, the door swinging shut behind me, the weight of the past pressing down on me. As I retreated to my room, I couldn't shake, feeling that the Oakwood Motel was alive, a breathing entity that held the remnants of lost souls within its grasp. I crawled back into bed, my mind swirling with thoughts of the children from the orphanage, their laughter echoing in the corridors, their stories entwined with mine. I closed my eyes tightly, wishing for a sleep, but the scratching returned, more insistent than ever. "Help me," it whispered again, and this time I couldn't ignore it. The night was far from over, and I knew I had to face whatever awaited me in the shadows. The Oakwood Motel was more than just a place to rest. It was a haunting reminder of the past, and I was determined to uncover its secrets, no matter the cost. I lay there, the whispers drifting like ghostly tendrils through my mind. The scratching intensified, clawing at the edges of my consciousness until I could almost feel the chill of small fingers tracing the wooden walls. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, my heart hammering in my chest. With each hesitant step toward the door, the heavy silence of the motel seemed to thicken, wrapping round me like a shroud. The hallway was dimly lit, flickering bulbs casting elongated shadows that danced along the peeling wallpaper. I could hear the faint echo of my footsteps, a reminder that I was alone in this labyrinth of memory. The scratching had ceased, replaced by an unsettling stillness that made my skin crawl. I glanced at the door to room 8, a dull brass number that felt like a gateway gateway to another world. It was said to be the room where the children would play, where laughter turned to screams, a forgotten echo of joy turned to despair. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, the metal cool against my palm. With a deep breath, I twisted it open and stepped inside. The room was bathed in shadows, the curtains drawn tight as if holding back secrets better left buried. The air was thick with dust, particles swirling in the faint light that filtered through the cracks. I could feel the weight. Countless eyes watching me, the presence of something more. Someone waiting. In the far corner of the room stood a vintage dresser, its mirror clouded with age. I approached it cautiously, drawn by an invisible force. As I peered into the glass, the reflection stared back at me, a distorted version of myself, eyes wide with fear, but it was not my own face. That made me gasp. Behind me, a shadow flitted across the wall, just out of reach of the dim light. I whipped round, but again, there was nothing, only silence, the echo of my own breath. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper, each syllable trembling. The silence answered, heavy and oppressive. Just as I was about to turn back to the mirror, a soft giggle echoed through the room, a sound so innocent yet laced with malice. It sent a shiver down my spine and pulled me deeper into the mystery. "Come play with us." Charles' voice chimed, sweet and melodic, but twisted in, the way only a ghostly echo could be. My heart raced as I felt the air grow colder, the shadows thickening round me. I fought against the rising panic, reminding myself that I was here to uncover the truth, not to cower in fear. I stepped closer to the dresser, driven by a mix of dread and curiosity. As I reached for the mirror again, the glass began to ripple, like the surface of a disturbed pond. I could see shapes forming, blurry figures dancing just beneath the surface jewel, their faces obscured, but their laughter ringing clear. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. The laughter stopped, replaced by a haunting silence that enveloped me like a fog. I leaned closer, desperate for answer, when suddenly the reflection shifted. A small girl, her hair a tangled mess, appeared in the mirror, her eyes wide with sorrow. "Help us," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rush of blood in my ears. "We're lost." Before I could respond, the dresser creaked ominously, and the mirror shattered, shards flying through the air like a rain of glimmering stars. I stumbled back, heart racing. As the room erupted into chaos, the laughter returned, echoing off the wall, mingling with the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor. I turned to flee, to escape the overwhelming despair that threatened to consume me. But as I reached for the door, it slammed shut with a force that rattled the very foundation of the motel. The air grew cold, and I felt the weight of countless gazes upon me, the trapped souls reaching out from the darkness. "Stay with us," the girl's voice echoed, now a chorus of whispers, pleading and insistent. "You can't leave." Panic surged within me, and I screamed, a raw, primal sound that filled the room. I had to break free, to escape the Oakwood Motel and the horrors it held within. But deep down, I knew I was already entangled in its web, drawn to the tragic stories hidden in the shadow. The night had only just begun, and the true horror was still waiting to reveal itself. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor, the weight of the unseen forces anchoring me in place. I took a breath, the air thick with dread, and forced myself to focus. I needed to understand the stories behind those whispers, the sadness that echoed through the walls of the Oakwood Motel. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling yet defiant. "What happened here?" The laughter faded, replaced by a palpable stillness that felt almost reverent, as if the very spirits of the motel were waiting for me to unlock their secrets. The girl's image flickered in the shards of the broken mirror, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "We were forgotten," she whispered, the words drifting into the air like a wisp of smoke. "But you can remember us. You can help us find peace." As if compelled by an unseen force, I stepped forward, picking up a jagged piece of glass from the floor. It sparkled under the dim light, reflecting twisted images of the room around. I felt the weight of the motel's history pressing down on me, 1,000 stories begging to be told. "Show me," I demanded, holding the shard closer to the girl's face. "Show me how I can help." in response. The atmosphere shifted, the shadows deepening, swirling into forms that began to take shape: a man in a tattered suit, a woman in a faded wedding dress, and a boy clutching a stuffed animal. They stood in the corners of the room, their expressions a mix of sorrow and desperation. The man stepped forward, his voice a low rumble that resonated in my bone. "We were lost in the night, just like you, trapped by our own regrets, our unfinished business." The woman nodded, her eyes pleading. "We thought we could escape, but the motel holds us, binds us to this place. Help us remember who we were." Suddenly, the walls began to pulse, the sounds of muffled cries and whispered secrets resonating beneath the surface. I felt a deep chill creep into my bones, as if the very essence of the motel was alive, wrapping round me like a shroud. Every floorboard creaked with the weight of time. I realized this was no ordinary motel. It was a repository of lost soul, each room a chapter in a never-ending tale of despair. "Tell me your story," I urged, my heart racing as I took another step forward. "Let me help you find peace." The boy stepped into the light, his voice fragile like glass. "We were here for a vacation, but the storm came. It took us." There was a pause, a shuddering breath as the room grew darker still. "Mommy said we would be safe, but the motel, it never let us go." As he spoke, the air thickened, and flashes of memories began to unfold like pages in a book. Images of families laughing in the lobby, couples arguing in the hallways, the laughter of children mingling with the ominous creaking of the building. I saw the storm outside, the rain lashing against the windows, trapping them inside the confines of their own fears. "Find the key," the woman urged urgently, her form flickering as if struggling against the weight of her own sorrow. "It's hidden in room 12. It will set us free." A rush of adrenaline surged through me. Room 12. I had to find it. I had to uncover the truth that lay buried beneath the layers of grief. I turned, ready to sprint down the dim corridor, when a loud crash echoed behind me. "Don't leave!" The chorus of voices filled the room, rising in panic as shadows clawed at the edges of my vision. I felt the pull of their sorrow, the weight of their longing to be remembered. With resolve, I pushed through the fear. "I won't leave you, I promise." I raced down the hall, each step echoing with the memories of those who had come before me. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls, leading me toward the truth hidden in room 12. As I reached the door, the handle was cold to the touch, sending a shiver down my spine. With a deep breath, I turned the knob, ready to confront whatever horror awaited me inside. The door creaked open, revealing a darkness that seemed to swallow the light whole. But I stepped inside, knowing that the only way to free the lost soul was to face the terror head-on. And as the door slammed shut behind me, I understood the real nightmare was only just beginning. The motel's secrets were waiting, and I was determined to uncover them all. As the darkness enveloped me, I felt my heartbeat echoing in my ears, a frantic rhythm that matched the rising tension in the air. The stale scent of mildew mixed with something far more unsettling, a hint of decay that sent my mind spiraling into a labyrinth of dread. I fumbled for my phone, its screen a small beacon of light, but the battery was dead, leaving me isolated in this suffocating blackness. "Room 12, I whispered, trying to anchor myself to the task at hand. My breath quickened as I scanned the room, my eyes straining to adjust. The faint outline of furniture emerged from the shadows: an old bed with tattered sheets, a dresser with peeling paint, and a dusty mirror that reflected only my apprehension. But it was the wall, adorned with faded photographs, that caught my attention. Each frame captured a moment in time, long-forgotten families smiling, couples embracing, children laughing. Yet there was something off about them. The eyes in those pictures seemed to follow me, their gazes heavy with unspoken story. I inched closer, my fingers brushing against the glass. One photograph in particular drew me in, a young girl with braided hair, her smile radiant yet strangely vacant. As I stared, a chilling realization washed over me. She looked familiar, as if I had seen her somewhere before. The hairs on my neck prickled with a sense of recognition, but the memory danced just out of reach. Suddenly, a low whisper broke the silence, reverberating vibrating through the room. "Help us." The voice was soft, almost melodic, yet it carried a weight of desperation that sent chills racing down my spine. I turned sharp, searching for the source, but the room remained still, the air thick with anticipation. "Help us find the key." The plea echoed in my mind, intertwining with the images round me. The key. I needed to find it. I had to unlock whatever was trapped in this place. My gaze landed on the dresser, its surface cluttered with dust and remnants of a life once lived. I approached it slowly, every creak of the floorboard amplifying the tension. As I opened the drawers one by one, the musty scent intensified, mingling with the taste of fear that lingered in my mouth. Old clothes, forgotten trinkets, and finally, a small box ornate and locked. Could this be it? I wondered aloud, my heart racing as I examined the box. It was worn but beautifully crafted, its intricate designs hinting at a history steeped in sorrow and longing. I needed a key, but where could it? As if in answer, a gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the last flicker of light from my phone. Darkness enveloped me once more, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. Yet I couldn't. Not now. Not when I was so close. Find the key. Whispers grew louder, swirling round me like a tempest. I pressed my palms against the box, feeling the chill of its surface seep into my skin. There was a warmth beneath, a pulse of energy that thrummed with life or perhaps death. I closed my eyes, letting the whispers guide me, trying to listen for the truth hidden within their sorrow. In the floor, beneath the bed, with a surge of determination, I dropped to my knees, my hands trembling as I reached beneath the bed. The dust clung to my fingers, and I could feel the rough texture of the wood and floor beneath me. My heart raced as I felt something cold and metallic, an object half buried in the grime. My fingers curled round, pulling it free. A key. As I held it up to the dim light streaming through the window, I felt a rush of triumph, but it was quickly overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of dread. "What have I awakened?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The whispers responded, swirling round me like a mournful choir, drawing me deeper into the mist. I had the key, but what would it unlock? With the key clutched tightly in my hand, I turned back to the box, feeling the weight of the motel secrets pressing down on me. It was time to confront what lay buried, to unveil the horrors that had haunted this place for far too long. The door was closed, but I could hear the echoes of the past calling my name, urging me forward. As I inserted the key into the lock, the air thickened, heavy with anticipation. The tumblers clicked into place, and with a deep breath, I turned the key, ready to unlock the truth, whatever darkness awaited me on the other side. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light from the hallway, and the stale air carried an unsettling chill. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, their once vibrant patterns now faded and stained. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing the whispers that seemed to thrum through the very floorboards beneath me. I stepped inside, my pulse quickening with each cautious movement. The room was sparsely furnished, a rickety bed with a tattered quilt, a nightstand with a chipped lamp, and a cracked mirror that reflected my anxious face back at me. But it was the closet that drew my attention, a heavy wooden door that stood slightly ajar, as if inviting me to peer inside. With a deep breath, I approached the closet, the air around me growing colder with each step. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of overlapping voices that spoke of fear and despair. "Find us, help us," they urged, their tones laced with desperation. I reached for the door handle, my hand trembling as I gripped it. As I pulled the door open, a musty odor wafted out, enveloping me in an embrace of decay. Inside, hanging clothes swayed gently. Although no breeze stirred in the room, I pushed aside a moth-eaten coat, revealing a small wooden box nestled in the corner. My heart raced. This was it, the next piece of the puzzle. I knelt to examine the box, its surface smooth yet cold to the touch. The latch was rusted, but held firm, a testament to the secrets it kept hidden. I glanced round, half expecting someone or something to leap out from the shadows, but the room remained still, save for the whispers that continued their mournful song. With a shaky breath, I pried the box open. Inside lay a collection of faded photographs, each one telling a story of sorrow and loss. Faces stared back at me, their expressions frozen in time. Some smiled, while others bore the weight of grief. Among them, I spotted a familiar face, one I had seen in the neighborhood, a woman woman whose laughter echoed through the autumn air. But there was something unsettling about the photograph. Her eyes seemed to follow me, pleading for release from the confines of the image. "Who are you?" I whispered, feeling the weight of her gaze bore into my soul. The whisper surged, a wave of energy that washed over me, drowning out my thoughts. "Help us. Find the truth," they urged me on. Igniting a fire of determination within me, I sifted through the photographs, each one revealing more about the history of this motel and the lives entwined within its walls. They spoke of disappearances, of laughter turned to scream, and of secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. My mind raced with questions. What had happened here? Why were these souls trapped? Their stories silenced as I pieced together the fragments of their lives. The room began to shift round me. The walls pulsed with energy, the air thickening with the weight of their sorrow. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps, soft but unmistakable, echoing from the hallway outside. My breath hitched in my throat. I was no longer alone. With the photographs clutched tightly in my hands, I turned towards the door, heart pounding in rhythm with the whisper. The footsteps grew louder, a steady approach that sent chills racing down my spine. I had awakened something, a presence that dwelled within the motel, hungry for acknowledgement. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. The room fell silent, the whispers fading into a tense stillness. I strained to listen, heart racing. The footsteps had stopped. In that moment, I understood. The answer to the mystery lay not only within the photographs, but also in confronting whatever lingered beyond the door. Summoning my courage, I stepped towards the threshold, the key still warm in my palm. Whatever awaited me out there, I was ready to face it. The truth was beckoning, and I could no longer turn away. I reached for the door handle, each heartbeat echoing the whispers of those who had come before. As I flung the door open, the corridor stretched before me, cloaked in shadows and silence, yet I could sense the presence lingering just out of sight. "Show yourself," I demanded, the weight of the motel's secrets heavy on my shoulders. It was time to unravel the final threads of this chilling tale, to uncover the horrors that had haunted this place for too long. And as I stepped through the door, I felt the whispers swell into a crescendo, urging me forward into the unknown. I took a tentative step forward, my senses heightened as the dim lighting flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, as if the very atmosphere conspired to keep the horrors of the past hidden. I could feel the whispers pulse round me, a cacophony, voices begging to be heard, and I strained to decipher their message as I moved deeper into the corridor. Each door I passed seemed to hold its own story, a silent testimony to the lives that had unfolded within those four walls. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the cries of despair, and the mundane chatter of travelers long gone. But there was something more, something darker that lingered, waiting for the curious to stumble upon it. A chill swept through me as I recalled the photographs in my pocket, their faded edges feeling like a ghostly reminder of what I was searching for. As I approached the end of the corridor, I noticed a door slightly ajar, its paint peeling and worn. A faint light flickered from within, illuminating a space that could only be described as a portal to another time. I hesitated, my heart racing, but the whispers grew more insistent, urging me to push. The door opened. It creaked in protest, revealing a room that looked untouched by time yet steeped in an eerie stillness. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper, patterns that seemed to swirl and shift as I looked closer. A large mirror hung opposite me, its surface clouded with age, yet it reflected the room in unsettling clarity. I stepped inside, my curiosity battling against the primal urge to flee. The light flickered once more, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a figure standing behind me in the mirror, fleeting shadow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Get a grip, Alex," I muttered to myself, my voice barely rising above the whispering voices that swirled round my head. I took a deep breath, recalling the stories I had heard about this motel. Each tale was more chilling than the last, recounting the fates of those who had crossed paths with its dark history, disappearances, hauntings, and unexplained phenomena that sent shivers down the spine of even the most skeptical traveler. My fingers brushed against a dusty dresser, and I opened a drawer, half expecting to find remnants of someone's life, a forgotten trinket, or a letter left behind. Instead, I uncovered a stack of yellowed paper, hastily scrawled notes that sent a wave of dread surging through me. They They told of a series of guests who had vanished without a trace, each accompanied by a single haunting phrase. The door was never meant to be opened. Suddenly, the whispers crescendoed, filling the room with a cacophony of voices, each one pleading, warning, lamenting. I clutched the notes tightly, feeling the weight of their stories pressing down on me. I had come searching for answers, but now I stood at the precipice of a truth that felt almost too heavy to bear. "Who are you?" I shouted, the desperation in my voice echoing against the wall. "What happened to you?" The air thickened, and for a moment I thought I could feel the presence behind me again. A cold breath on my neck that sent goosebumps racing across my skin as I turned. The mirror caught my eye once more. This time it was no longer a mere reflection. It seemed alive, swirling with shadows and flickers of light. I stepped closer, drawn in by an unseen force, heart pounding in my chest. I had to know what lay beyond the glass, what secrets it held of those who had come before me. Then, with a sudden surge of clarity, I understood. The stories weren't just about the motel or the guests, they were about the choices we make in the face of fear, the paths we take, and the ghosts we invite into our lives. In that moment, standing at the edge of darkness, I realized I was now part of this twisted tale, and the motel was watching, waiting for me to make my next move. With renewed determination, I backed away from the mirror, clutching the notes tighter than ever. I had to uncover the truth, not just for myself, but for those who had come before, whose voices still echoed in the silence. The whispers faded slightly, replaced by a single, clear command: "Find us." As I stepped back into the corridor, I felt the weight of the stories pressing down on me. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was armed with knowledge, ready to face whatever horrors awaited me, a search for answers that would lead me deeper into the heart of the motel's mystery, and perhaps into the heart of my own fears as well. The night was far from over, and as I moved towards the next door, I could sense that I was not just a visitor in this place. I was becoming part of its legacy. Entwined with the whispers of the past, the door loomed before me, its paint peeling and edges frayed, as if it had seen too many seasons come and go. I hesitated for a moment, listening intently to the silence that enveloped the corridor, punctuated only by the distant hum of the neon sign outside. It flickered erratically, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the wall, taunting me to push forward. With a deep breath, I gripped the handle and turned, the rusty hinges creaking like a warning. Inside, the musty air hit me like a wall, thick with the weight of forgotten memories. The room was dimly lit, the only source of illumination coming from the flickering bulb above. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, and I could almost hear the past whispering through the decay. My eyes were drawn to the bed, and covered in a thin layer of dust. But it was the nightstand that captured my attention. A faded photograph lay there, it is cold and yellowed, depicting a family smiling faces frozen in a moment of happiness, unaware of the darkness that would soon close. I picked it up, feeling an inexplicable connection to the scene. They looked so carefree, yet the shadows behind them hinted at an unsettling truth. I flipped the photograph over, revealing the scrawled words: "We'll always be together." The chill that ran down my spine was immediate and visceral. What did that? Had they been here? Were they still here, trapped in this motel, just like I was beginning to feel? As I set the photograph down, a sudden crash echoed from the adjoining room, making me jump. My heart raced as I approached the wall, pressing my ear against the cool surface. Muffled voices reached, a conversation laced with urgency and fear. I strained to listen, but it was as if the words were intentionally obscured, teasing my curiosity. I had to know who was in there, what secrets they were hiding. I took a step back, ready to knock, when the door swung open suddenly, revealing a disheveled man with wild eyes. His face was pale, and he seemed to be trembling. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, glancing back over his shoulder as if ensuring he wasn't being watched. "They're coming for you too." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, instinctively mirroring his fear. "The voices," he continued, his gaze darting round the room. "They lure you in, make you believe you're part of something bigger. But it's a trap." He leaned closer, pressing a trembling finger to his lips. "You need to leave relieved now, but instead of fear. Curiosity surged within me. "What do you mean? What happened to you?" He hesitated, the panic in his eyes deepening. "I was like you," he said, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "I wanted to know. I thought I could uncover the truth." But his voice trailed off, and the shadows behind him seemed to stretch, coiling like tendrils of darkness seeking to reclaim their own. Before I could press further, he turned abruptly, disappearing into the room, and I found myself standing in the hallway, the weight of his warning hanging heavy in the air. I could feel the presence of the motel around, a living entity, pulsing with secrets, determined to continue my search. I stepped back into the corridor, the floor creaking beneath my feet. I could feel the walls closing in, the whispers growing louder, calling to me with an urgency that was both thrilling and terrifying. As I made my way toward the next door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The motel seemed to hold its breath, waiting for my next decision, as if it knew the stories I was about to uncover would change everything. Each door I approached felt like a portal into another world, filled with the echoes of lives once lived. I was no longer just a visitor. I was an investigator, a witness to the horrors that had unfolded within these walls. With every step, I felt the pull of the path, guiding me deeper into the heart of the motel's mystery, where the true nature of fear awaited. The night was far from over, and I was determined to face whatever darkness lay ahead, even if it meant confronting the very ghosts that had haunted this place for years. As I reached the next door, a chill swept through the air, prickling my skin and raising the hairs on the back of my neck. The brass doorknob felt cold and unyielding in my hand, as if resisting my touch. I hesitated, the weight of anticipation pressing down on me. What stories lay behind this door? My heart raced with a mixture of excitement and dread. With a deep breath, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The hinges creaked ominously, revealing a dimly lit room that smelled of stale cigarettes and something else, a faint metallic scent that made my stomach churn. The small space was cluttered, remnants of someone's life scattered about, an overturned chair, an unmade bed with sheets that looked like they hadn't been washed in months, and a cracked mirror hanging askew on the wall. Each item seemed to whisper secrets, urging me to dig deeper. A flickering light bulb above cast erratic shadows, dancing across the walls like specters in a macabre ballet. I stepped inside, the door closing quietly behind me, sealing me in this cocoon of unease. My eyes were drawn to the bed where a small, battered notebook lay, its pages yellowed and fragile. I approached it cautiously, glancing round as if expecting someone to leap from the shadows. The notebook was a testament to despair. Scrawled notes filled the pages, fragmented thoughts, incoherent ramblings, drawings of dark figures lurking in the corners. One entry caught my eye, the handwriting frantic and jagged. They watched from the mirrors. They know my name. A shiver ran down my spine. I looked at the cracked mirror, its surface distorted, reflecting my unease back at me. I flipped through the notebook, each page revealing a layer of fear that resonated within me. Room 7. One entry read, "Is where the disappearances happen. They take you, and you never come back." My mind raced. What had happened in this motel? Who had been taken? I felt the urge to leave, to escape the weight of these words, but a deeper curiosity held me captive. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the adjacent room, jolting me from my thoughts. My heart pounded in my chest, and instinctively I pressed my ear against the wall, straining to hear more. Silence enveloped me, thick and suffocating, as if the entire motel was holding its breath. I took a step back, my pulse quickening, and decided to investigate further. I crossed the threshold into the hallway again, the oppressive atmosphere thickening with each passing moment. The sound had come from room 8. Just a few doors down, I felt a pull, an undeniable urge to uncover whatever lay hidden within those walls. My footsteps echoed softly, each sound amplified in the stillness of the night. As I approached room 8, I noticed the door was ajar, an invitation laced with foreboding. I peered inside, my heart racing as I caught a glimpse of a figure hunched in the corner. The dim light cast eerie shadows that danced round the room. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The figure turned slowly, revealing a gaunt face, eyes sunken and wild. "You shouldn't be here," they rasped, their voice a haunting whisper that sent chills down my spine. "They'll come for you too." "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping further into the room, the door creaking ominously behind me. "They take what they want," the figure continued, their gaze flickering nervously to the door. "Once you see them, there's no turning back. You become part of the story, part of the horror." The atmosphere in the room shifted, a palpable tension hanging in the air. "What have you seen?" I pressed, my curiosity igniting despite the fear gnawing at me. "They feed on your fear," they whispered, their voice trembling. "And once you're in their grip, they won't let go." Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a low growl emanated from the hallway, reverberating through the motel. The figure's eyes widened in terror. "They're here." In that moment, everything shifted. The motel came alive, the walls closing in, and I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the room. I was no longer just an observer. I was ensnared in a web of terror. The true horror of the motel was about to reveal itself. The growl grew louder, reverberating off the walls like a monstrous echo. The figure in the corner pressed themselves against the wall, eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. "You need to leave now," they gasped, their voice barely above a whisper, yet laced with urgency. I hesitated, torn between my instinct to flee and the insatiable curiosity that had led me here in the first place. "Why? What will happen if I stay?" The question hung in the air, thick with tension. As the growl morphed into a guttural snarl, I could feel the air in the room shift, heavy with dread, as if the very shadows were closing in round me. "They'll take you," the figure hissed, trembling. "The motel is a trap, a feeding ground. People come here seeking solace, but dark forces lurk within these walls. They prey on the lost, the broken." Their voice trailed off, the terror in their eyes deepening as the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow and deliberate. I turned, my heart pounding in my chest, and caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows beyond the door. It was a hulking silhouette, a grotesque shape that seemed to shift and undulate as it approached. The hallway light flickered, casting a strobe of light that revealed glimpses of features I dared not fully comprehend. My breath quickened, and I felt a cold sweat bead on my forehead. "Run!" the figure shrieked, their voice breaking as I felt the pull of panic tighten round my throat. But my legs felt rooted to the ground, as if the very floorboards were conspiring to keep me there. The growl intensified, resonating with the primal hunger that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, the door swung open with a creak, and I was met with a pair of glowing eyes that pierced through the dark. "Join us," a voice cooed, smooth yet sinister, laced with the promise of something unfathomable. "We're all waiting for you." In that moment, the walls of the motel seemed to pulse, breathing with an unseen life force that wrapped round me like a shroud. I turned back to the figure in the corner, who was now shaking their head violently, tears streaming down their pallid cheeks. "Please, don't listen to them," they cried. "They'll strip you of everything, leaving only shadows behind." As if on cue, the air grew thick with a stench of decay, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. I stumbled backwards, the figure's warning echoing in my mind. I turned on my heel, sprinting towards the door, the growl now a cacophony of monstrous laughter that chased me down the hallway. I burst into the night, gasping for breath as the cool air hit my flushed cheeks. The motel loomed behind me, a dark silhouette against the starlit sky. I could still hear the growl, now mingled with whispers, beckoning me back. "You can't escape," they taunted. "You're already part of the story." Desperate, I glanced back, my heart racing as I spotted a flicker of movement at the window of room 8. The figure was still there, their face a mask of horror, mouthing silent words I couldn't hear. I felt an inexplicable bond with them, a shared understanding of the terror that lurked just beyond the threshold. But as I turned away, I knew I couldn't go back. I had to find a way out of this nightmare. Yet, deep down, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. What if I had already become part of the motel's dark tapestry, woven into its haunting history, forever chasing shadows that would never let me go? I stumbled into the parking lot, the gravel crunching beneath my feet, and spotted my car. But as I approached, an icy realization washed over me. The engine everyone was dead. I was trapped, with nowhere to run. The motel's secrets were now mine to bear, and I could feel its cold breath on my neck, urging me to stay just a little longer, to dive deeper into the horror that was unfolding round me. And that was just the beginning. The motel had more stories to tell each room, a chapter steeped in dread and despair, waiting for me to uncover the truths hidden within its walls. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I turned back toward the motel, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and intrigue. I was already ensnared in its web, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my story was just beginning as I stepped back into the faded lobby. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, punctuated only by the faint hum of the fluorescent lights flickering above. The receptionist, an elderly woman with eyes that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality, watched me with an unsettling intensity. Her name tag read Ethel, but it felt more like a warning than an introduction. "You'll find what you're looking for," she said cryptically, her voice a raspy whisper that wrapped round me like a cold shroud. "Each room holds its own tale." I hesitated, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. What was I looking for? The truth? Redemption? Or perhaps the very thing that had brought me to this cursed place in the first place? My mind raced with possibility, but I knew one thing. I was not leaving until I uncovered the stories that echoed through these walls. Room 1, where the first horror story began, beckoned me. The door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, the smell of decay wafting out like a ghostly invitation. Inside, the remnants of a life once lived lay scattered: an overturned chair, a dusty lamp flickering weak, and a mirror reflecting an image of despair. And newspaper clippings tacked to the wall caught my eye, the headline screaming of a tragic death that occurred right in this very room. A young couple, their love cut short by a jealous rage that left one lifeless and the other eternally haunted. As I stepped closer, my pulse quickened. I could almost hear their whisper, their laughter, and the chilling moment when it all turned to horror. Suddenly, the room felt alive, the air buzzing with their unresolved pain. I shivered as a gust of wind blew through the cracked window, rustling the papers and sending chills down my spine. I was no longer just an observer. I was a part of their story now. I stumbled out of room 1, adrenaline surging through my veins. The hallway felt narrower, the walls closing in on me as I made my way to room 2, my breath quickening with each step. This room was different. Its door was ajar, inviting yet menacing. I peered inside and gasped. It was a time capsule of sorts, frozen in a moment of chaos. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled and stained, while the walls were covered in frantic scribbles that seemed to pulse with energy. "Help me," they read, over and over again, a desperate plea etched into the very fabric of the room. I could feel the weight of their anguish bearing down on me as I stepped inside, the atmosphere thick with despair. It was as if the walls themselves were crying out for salvation. I reached out to touch the scribbles, and in that instant, a vision crashed over me: a young woman, eyes wide with terror, trapped in a cycle of fear, reliving the same torment night after night. I pulled my hand back, gasping for breath. The motel was a prison, each room a cell housing the echoes of its past. I could feel their suffering, the weight of their stories pressing against my chest. I stumbled back into the hallway, desperate for air, when a door at the end of the corridor caught my eye. Room 3, the threshold to the unknown. With a mix of dread and curiosity, I approached, the door swinging open with a ghostly creak inside. The atmosphere felt different, charged with an electric energy that both terrified and exhilarated me. The walls were bare, save for a single photograph hanging askew. It was an image of the motel itself, but the sky above was an unnatural shade of crimson, swirling ominously. As I stepped close, a figure materialized in the corner of my vision, a shadow moving just beyond the frame of the photograph. Heart racing, I turned to look, but the room was empty. Yet I could feel it have undeniable presence, watching, waiting. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to escape this nightmare, but a deeper pull urged me forward. I was meant to uncover these truths, to confront the darkness that had swallowed so many before me. As I reached for the photograph, the lights flickered violently, casting eerie shadows across the wall. The whispers returned, louder now, drowning Hearing out my thoughts, "Join us," they beckoned, their voices a haunting chorus that echoed through my mind. The line between fear and fascination blurred, and I realized I was standing on the precipice of something far greater than myself. The motel was alive, and I was merely a chapter in its ever-unfolding story. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past pressing against my shoulder. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to dive deeper into the shadows, to unearth the secrets that had been buried within these walls for far too long. As I stepped out of room 3, I knew I wasn't just a visitor anymore. I was a part of the motel's legacy, intertwined with the stories that begged to be told. Each room held a new fear, a new truth, and I was determined to uncover them all, no matter the cost. As I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the air grew thick with an unsettling tension, a palpable energy that seemed to pulse through the walls. Each door I passed whispered secrets of its own, the chipped paint and rusty hinges bearing witness to countless stories, some tragic, others unfathomable. I paused in front of room 5, drawn by a low hum that vibrated against my skin, a siren call that promised to reveal the motel's darkest truths. Tentatively, I twisted the doorknob, the metal cold and unyielding beneath my fingers. The door creaked open, revealing a room that felt suspended in time. Dust motes danced in the slanting light, and the air was thick with the scent of mildew and something unidentifiable, a hint of decay, perhaps all the remnants of despair. The room was sparsely furnished, but my gaze was drawn immediately to a mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, its surface marred and tarnished. As I approached, I caught a glimpse of movement behind me, a fleeting shadow darting past the doorway. My heart raced, but I forced myself to look into the mirror, half expecting to see a reflection that was not my own. Instead, I was met with my own pale face, wide-eyed and trembling. Yet behind me in the glass, I saw something else, a figure standing just beyond the threshold, charted in darkness. My breath caught in my throat, and I spun around. But the hallway was empty once more. "Get a grip, Alex," I muttered to myself, trying to steady my racing heart. "It's just your imagination." But deep down, I knew better. The motel thrummed with a life of its own, each room a vessel for the stories of those who had come before. And I was now one of them, determined to press on. I turned back to the mirror. This time, I leaned closer, peering into its depths as if it might reveal the secrets hidden within. Suddenly, the reflection shifted. The room behind me melted away, replaced by a scene from another time. I saw a couple, young and vibrant, laughing as they danced in the very spot where I stood, their joy infectious yet tinged with an undercurrent of sorrow. They seemed unaware of the darkness lurking just outside their blissful moment, a shadow creeping across the floor, inching closer and closer. I blinked, and the scene vanished, replaced by my own startled reflection. A chill coursed through me as I realized that the couple had not simply been a figment of my imagination. They were part of this motel's tragic history. The whispers returned, swirling round me like a tempest. "Help us," they pleaded, their voices sorrowful and desperate. "We never left." My pulse quickened as I stepped back, the weight of their unfulfilled plea pressing against my chest. I had to know more. With newfound resolve, I began to search the room, riffling through drawers and examining every surface. Beneath the bed, I found a small, dust-covered box. My fingers trembled as I pried it open, revealing a collection of yellowed letters, each one stained with the passage of time. As I unfolded the first letter, the words jumped out at me, detailing a love story that had turned tragic. The couple had stayed in this very room, their plans for a future cut short by a sudden, inexplicable disappearance. The last line read, "We will always be together, even in death." A chill ran down my spine as I wondered if their spirits lingered here, trapped in the very essence of the motel. The shadows round me seemed to pulse and shift, and I could feel the weight of their grief pressing down on me. I was no longer just an observer. I was part of a narrative woven into the very fabric of this place. The motel's history was beckoning me, urging me to uncover not just the past, but the truth of what had happened to the couple whose love had been consumed by darkness. As I pieced together their story, I felt a surge of resolve. I would help them find peace, no matter the cost. The whispers grew louder, the energy in the room crackling with anticipation. anticipation as I prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. The motel was a labyrinth of secrets, and I was determined to navigate its twists and turns, uncovering the layers of horror that lay hidden within each room. With each step I took, I could feel the weight of the past pressing against me, urging me to listen, to understand, to heal. My journey was far from over. It was just beginning, room by room, story by story. I would unravel the dark tapestry of the motel's lace, unearthing truths long buried beneath the dust and shadow. And perhaps, just perhaps, I could help the lost souls find their way back to the light. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The first door I approached was slightly ajar, its paint chipped and faded, revealing the vulnerability of secrets long concealed. My heart raced as I pushed it open, and the hinges creaked like the groans of the past echoing in the stillness inside. The room was dimly lit, the flickering bulb casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, a testament to the years of neglect this place had endured. As I stepped inside, I was struck by the oppressive atmosphere. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for someone to uncover their hidden stories. I noticed a small, tattered diary lying on the bedside table, its cover worn and stained. My fingers trembled with anticipation as I picked it up, the leather feeling cool against my skin. Flipping through the pages, I discovered the musings of a woman named Clara, who had once stayed in this room with her husband, Tom. Their entries spoke of love, laughter, dreams of a future filled with adventure. But as the days progressed, the tone shifted. Clara's words became frantic, filled with fear and confusion. She wrote of strange noises at night, whispers that seemed to seep through the walls, and shadows that lingered just beyond her sight. The final entry sent chills coursing through me. I can feel it watching us. Tom says I'm imagining things, but I know something is wrong. I don't know how much longer we can stay here. The page was stained with what I could only assume were tears, the ink running, like the very fear that had consumed her. In that moment, I understood. This room had become a prison for Clara and Tom, their love suffocated by the malevolent force lurking within the motel. I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out to Clara, to assure her that she was not forgotten, that her story would not end in despair. But as I closed the diary, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, slamming the door shut behind me with a deafening thud. Panic surged through my veins, and I spun round, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows seemed to close in round, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words and unresolved grief. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Clara, I whispered, hoping my voice would break through the veil of fear that surrounded us. I'm here to help you. The air grew colder, and I could almost hear a faint whispering response, a sound both mournful and pleading. It was then that I realized I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the corner of the room, stood a figure, a woman, translucent and ethereal, her face a mask of sorrow. It was Clara. I can't leave, she said, her voice a haunting echo that resonated within my soul. He won't let me go. Her eyes were filled with a depth of pain that transcended time, a testament to a love turned tragic. My heart ached for her, but I could feel a spark of determination igniting within me. I'll help you find him, I promised. Stepping closer, we'll uncover the truth together. Just then, a chilling presence surged through the room, a dark energy that twisted round us, threatening to snuff out the fragile light of hope. Clara's form flickered, and I could see the desperation etched on her face. You must be careful, she warned, her voice barely a whisper. He's always watching. With each passing moment, the shadows grew bolder, swirling like a storm ready to unleash its fury. I knew I had to act swiftly. There were more stories to uncover in this motel, more souls in need of liberation. I stepped back, glancing at the door that had slammed shut, and then at Clara. I won't abandon you, I vowed. Together, we'll face whatever darkness lies ahead. As I reached for the doorknob, I felt the weight of Clara's sadness pressing against, mingling with the urgency of the moment. This was just the beginning of a journey that would unravel not only the history of the motel, but also the very threads of love, loss, and the relentless grip of the past. With a final glance at Clara, I pushed open the door, ready to confront the unknown and seek the next tale hidden within the haunted walls of the motel. Each room held a new chapter, a new mystery to piece together, and I was determined to unearth the truth both for myself and for the souls yearning to be freed from their eternal torment. As I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the air around me thickened, tinged with a musty scent that hinted at years of neglect. The flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper, each corner of the motel whispering secrets long since forgotten. My heart raced as I scanned the doors lining the corridor, each one a potential portal to another chilling story. I paused at room 12, a faded number barely hanging on its door. It was said that this room held the first of 3 tales one of a young couple who had checked in on a fateful night, never to check out. I could almost hear their laughter echoing through the walls, a haunting reminder of joy turned tragic. Determined, I raised my hand to knock. Sound of my knuckles rapping against the wood sent a shiver down my spine. But before I could second-guess myself, the door creaked open, revealing an empty room. And touched by time yet heavy with an unsettling presence, the curtains fluttered gently. Although no breeze stirred outside, I stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath my weight, as I took in the sparse furnishings: a bed covered in a faded floral quilt, a small table littered with remnants of someone's last meal, and a mirror that reflected a distorted version of reality. As I approached the mirror, my gaze caught something, unusual, a flicker of movement just beyond the glass. My breath caught in my throat, and I leaned closer, heart pounding. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind me in the reflection. I whipped around, but the room was empty. I blinked rapidly, trying to dismiss the vision, but the air grew heavier, charged with a palpable energy. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice echoing back to me, swallowed by the silence of the room. Just then, I felt a cold hand brush against my arm, sending icy tendrils of fear racing through me. I turned again, and there stood a woman, her face pale and expression mournful. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling like the flickering lights above us. "Are you the couple?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded slowly, her eyes filled with sorrow that reached deep into my soul. "We were trapped here, caught in a web of despair." "What happened?" I urged, my curiosity igniting despite the fear gripping my heart. The woman's gaze drifted to the mirror, and I followed her gaze, noticing the reflections of 2 smiling faces, her and a man I could only assume was her partner, frozen in a moment of happiness that felt painfully distant. "We were on the run," she began, her voice laced with anguish, "desperate to escape our past. We thought we could find solace here, but the motel, it feeds on our fears and regrets. He was taken from me, lost to the darkness. The shadows round us thickened, swirling with an insatiable hunger." I could feel the weight of her grief wrapping round, and I knew I had to help. "What can I do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. "How can I set you free? Find the truth," she implored, her voice breaking. "Unravel the stories locked within these walls. Only then can we be released." With renewed determination, I nodded, feeling the urgency of her plea. I had come here seeking story, but now I understood that each tale was a thread in a much larger tapestry of sorrow and loss. Yes. I stepped back towards the door. I glanced once more at the woman, her form beginning to fade. "I won't forget you," I promised. "I will uncover the truth." With the door creaking shut behind me, I felt the first strings of hope against the oppressive darkness. I moved to the next door in the hallway, a sense of purpose guiding my steps. There were more stories to unveil, more souls yearning for the light. Each room was a testament to the lives entwined within this motel, and I was determined to bring their stories to the surface. As I approached room 14, I felt the familiar chill in the air, a signal that another tale awaited. I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever waited behind the door. The journey had only just begun, but I could already sense the heavy weight of history pressing against me, urging me forward into the unknown. Each story was a dark echo of the past, and I was here to shed light on the shadows that lingered, to set the lost souls free.